And we are live. Episode
Jeff, Jeff and Kira.
44. Jeff and Kira live. Rocking the fun times with the new system. 3 episodes in, and we are having a good time, I think. Are you having a good time, Kira?
I always have a good time. Always.
Yeah.
I love Jeff and Kira. And Johan, I think Johan's probably gonna be here if he's not here yet already.
He's one of the regulars. We've got Johan, and there's a whole bunch of them that come in and like to chat, and they've seen my Mandela videos. Like we just had logging in here.
Yeah.
So that's always fun. How are you doing? How's Atlanta doing a Kira check?
It's great. I like the Kira checks every week where it's like, are you still alive? How are you doing down the south? Everything's really great. It's interesting. I had a friend come down to visit me from Los Angeles over the past few days, and she remarked how different it is here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, yeah, of course, but I think when you really go to another state, you don't realize how different each state truly is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of interesting to get the outside perspective from someone that's coming from Los Angeles to Atlanta.
What was her?
Yeah.
So, what were some of the noticeable differences? I'd be curious because for anybody who doesn't know, I'm in California and Los Angeles, and Kira's now in Atlanta, Georgia. As of a couple months ago, what were some of the noticeable differences from living here to there?
Yeah, she mentioned, and she was only here for 3 days, but the biggest thing for her was that people actually said hi and like, how are you doing?
Yeah.
And they were perfect strangers on the street. Like in Los Angeles, that would never happen.
People say hi on the street. I mean, wow. Like,
I know.
That's incredible.
It's bizarro. It's an incredible kind of thing. And you forget the kindness and just people being cordial.
Yeah.
Whereas in Los Angeles, it's very hyper-focused in your own world.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone says hi to you, especially as a woman, you're like, oh my God. You're kind of like taken out of your little world that you created. A friend of mine told me that he was picking up water. This was like last year, and like bottled water, and filtered water. And he said hi to the woman that was near or inside the same storage. She just was like a zombie, didn't even hear him, because I think you just walk around like Zombieville, you know. And the other thing is COVID and how each state is handling it a bit differently.
Yeah.
It's funny because I've only been gone like 3 months, I think. And I don't even remember what LA is like. Like I work out 4 days a week at the gym. And I forget that Los Angeles isn't even open with their gyms yet. I dine in at restaurants here.
So you dine in like inside or on the patio?
Yeah.
Inside.
Yeah, no, I dine inside. Yeah.
Okay. We have outdoor dining. We have outdoor dining has opened here, which has been for.
You have the al fresco going on, right?
Yeah. We have we have outdoor dining, so everything's out in the street, and in the there's been people eating in parking garages.
Eating in parking garages?
Yeah, at the Glendale Mall, they had the tables set up in the parking garage, which can't be healthy.
Yum.
That almost sounds as dangerous as as eating inside, with I mean having all the gas fumes and everything can't be good in that way. But yes, we have some so people are outdoors in the streets, and so some of it's kind of nice. It's cool to the setup outside, but what version of winter we do get in Los Angeles, we will put some limitations on that as far as what can be done outside. But yeah, we're basically here. Outdoor dining's happening. Salons are now back open. Those have been open for a while now.
Right.
But we're definitely not close to opening, and people are very cautious I mean, I've been working on movies here and there, and everybody's very cautious on those, which it's good. I mean, to be responsible and such. I mean, it should be. But from what I understand, other states are not as cautious as Los Angeles, or not as mask oriented. I mean, masks are still like required there, right?
Yeah,
What's
it is.
that?
So you have to wear masks going into stores, but you take it right off the minute you get out of the store. But
Mm-hmm.
in Los Angeles, you like wear it all the way to your car and then from your car to your home. Like it was very, and then if you didn't do that and your neighbors saw you, they'd start freaking out.
Right.
Here, we don't do that. So it's, you wear it into the store because they require it. Some places, like I went to the hair salon yesterday, some people weren't wearing their masks and it wasn't a big deal. Nobody said anything. Nobody freaked out. Nobody went up to them and said, hey, you have to wear a mask.
And this
It's
is
a
at the hair
little,
salon.
correct.
Right? Wow. And they
And
were
I went to the
inside.
grocery store. Yeah, we're inside. Oh yeah, of course. There's no like I
Wow.
work out inside at a gym
Yeah.
without a mask on. So,
Are
I
you
mean,
serious?
I don't wear a mask working out.
And they don't require you to. There.
No.
Wow, that's different than here.
It's very different. So we have, I mean, they do social distancing.
Yeah.
When you go get your weights, you have to put your mask on, go get your weights, and then back to your square. Everybody has like a square that's 6 feet away from everyone else, but
Okay.
it's not so jammy, if that makes sense, where it's like no one's breathing down people's throats like, oh, don't you realize there's a pandemic? Wear your mask. It's like nobody's doing that.
Yeah.
There's not, I think the difference is, and it kind of goes back to, how we started today, was that like Mr. Plumber here says he refuses to wear masks 100%. And there's those people, like my brother can't stand wearing masks. He thinks it's the dumbest thing ever. And I'm like,
Really?
well, you're not special. I'm like, look, everybody's got to do it. Like it sucks,
Yep.
but like, welcome to the world. He's like, well, I'm breaking out with acne. I'm like, yeah, yes, everybody is. I'm like, you're not special. Just wear. I mean, if he had to live in Los Angeles, he would last maybe a day.
Right.
Los Angeles is very, and that, I got distracted by Mr. Plummer's comment, but each state is almost turning into its own country now. And we see that from like a culture perspective. We see that from a political perspective.
Yeah.
And we see that from like a sociology kind of experiment perspective. The way people interact with one another is very different. The way we're handling a pandemic is radically different.
Yeah.
As well as our own thought process and emotions.
Yeah.
And now Los Angeles, and you and I have talked about this, and this was a big reason, like 98% of the reason why I moved away from Los Angeles was the atmosphere there. And I don't mean environmentally, though that's part of it, but the atmosphere of this tension.
Yep.
And this like fear-based reality of this constant anxiety. I thought I was having a heart attack every day. Everyone.
Yeah.
I'm like, everyone's got to take a deep breath and meditate or something because everyone's losing their brain.
Yeah.
And here in Atlanta, everyone's super chill. And I'm like, oh, thank God I can breathe, without people getting so fear-based. I have friends who are like, I don't feel comfortable getting on a plane right now. I don't feel comfortable coming to you. And I would never judge them for not coming. But at the same time, holy hell.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think you and I have always, I think when this started in January, you and I always said, look, if we get sick, we get sick. We will wear the masks like we're required, wherever they are required. But at the same time, we're not going to live in this constant fear of this virus. And if we get sick, we get sick, and that's thankfully how it is down here.
Yeah.
And that's a big change for anyone coming from a different state, especially like a Los Angeles that is, having anxiety attacks all day long there,
I think that I think that it almost, each state to state almost feels like a different country in a way. I mean, the cultures are so different across
Yeah.
just state lines, not only about masks, but about, gosh, it feels like everything, and so hearing that from you, who was here and then moves there 2 months ago, like it's fascinating to hear the dramatic change there, to hear, just how drastic that is. um
Like, are you guys still experiencing the anxiety? Like, everyone's just, oh, if you have the mask slightly too low, it causes, like, people are calling each other out again, still, and all of that.
yeah, we have, people are still, by the way, while I'm doing this, I'm going over to those, uh, it's, oh, spreading it on social media as we're going. I funny because I think that people definitely, there's definitely a change in, there hasn't been a change in how people react when they see people hold each other accountable. People call each other out much more here. While I know, and
Right.
there's a lot less of that. And I see that everywhere. I see that at the gym. I see that at, everywhere. Well, there are, well, gyms open now here. I don't know, but when they opened and then they closed again. But that is, it's happening everywhere here, is the bottom line. Um, Grocery stores, everywhere it's really happening, and I think that's a stark difference from there to here. Overall, how much more accountable here. Finding.
Yeah, it's just, I think people just don't want to live like that here.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? And I respect that, and um, I really quite enjoy it because I don't feel like I don't feel the tension in the air here. There is
really.
no tension, it just isn't. No one's real concerned about anything here.
Yeah.
I get my lashes done in Midtown, which is a pretty prominent area in Atlanta, and I get it done every 2 weeks.
Yep.
And my lash woman, I asked her, she's an African American woman, and she was saying, I was asking her, like, especially during the protests and all of that kind of stuff, like how it was down here, because I was still living in Los Angeles. And she's like, Kira, um, most of the blacks here, they are very wealthy, and they are the entrepreneurs, and they do very well, where there you don't see a lot of protests down here.
Really.
And it's really interesting to me because I just didn't think of it, because um, the demographic wise, you know, it it's a lot more blacks and whites and less Latinos and that type of thing. But um, she said we don't really have anything to protest about because they actually have a really good income and they do really well, and they own a lot of the businesses in Atlanta.
Hmm.
So when all the protests were going on, it wasn't like LA, it wasn't like Portland, it wasn't like Washington. Um, you would think the South would have more of that, where it would be like, race relations and protests. But she said, in Atlanta, it's very different. And I've talked to other people where a lot of the bars are owned by Black individuals, and a lot of the clubs here, they do very well. And it's opposite of what you would think. You would think you'd be stepping into, a disparity between the two. And I'm sure there still is, and there's still racism, obviously, here, but like there is everywhere in the U.S. But it was interesting coming from her perspective, where things like how they feel from their community
Yeah.
and their businesses, being pretty predominant here in Atlanta.
Well, I think what I think about that is there's been a lot of, interesting. Second, there's been a lot of, pushback online from people about, you know what's happening at some protests. They say that it's there's rioting happening, and so on and so forth. And I encourage people to see that there are a lot of Um, there are a lot of very peaceful protests happening, and there are a lot of people that, for some reason, there's like different lenses on this. People don't see all the peaceful protests. So you end up online there, you see a lot of the riots happening, um, which is something totally different, you know. And I think to kind of label protests as riots is not giving protests the respect they deserve, and, and understanding that people are doing that for the peaceful stuff for a good reason. And I think that the riots have been conflated with that. And I think that's a shame, because I don't think it gives people, it makes people look bad who do have great intentions with protesting. Um, and so
Yeah,
that's always kind of saddened
100%.
me. And I think that it can vary too from state to state how people are seeing it. But people blow up these riots that are happening really, really big, and it makes people think that every protest is a riot. And that's not the case. And we should label riots as riots, and we should label protests as protests. I don't think that
Right.
there's people labeling protests as riots, and I don't think that's fair to well-intentioned protests.
Well, and I think that's 100% accurate. And yeah, honestly, you could make the parallel of that same case with COVID.
Yeah.
COVID is a very serious virus, and it's a pandemic. Should we lose our brains over it and lose our sense of reality and sense of kindness and compassion towards one another? No, you can still, you know what I mean? Is it the end of the earth? No. I mean, you can look at you can look at something and see it from a tiny little angle, just like a lot of people are like, oh, there's riots. That's all that Black Lives Matter is. It's like, no, it's not. The protest, a peaceful protest, is exactly what it's intended to be. It's to have the voice and stand up and say, this needs changed. Not every protest is a riot. They're actually completely different things. Whereas, in COVID, it is possible that we can have this in our society and still maintain our composure and not allow fear to completely take over,
Yeah.
and I think that's what we're seeing, the disparities between the two, between states, and how people look at race relations, look at how COVID is handled. Yes, there's absolutely protests and riots going on, but the two are not synonymous.
That,
You can't mix them up. They're very different, and you should give people the credit when they do protest and say there is an equality, and there is unfair practices going on, and murder in some cases with these cops. You can hold them accountable. Does that mean we get rid of the entire police force?
no.
No. It doesn't have to be so black and white. There could be a gray area, and that's okay to
Hmm.
hold two opposing views at the same time.
That's right. And so it's just a little confusing to me, when I say that, the 100% of the protests are peaceful. That's because I don't label riots as protests. So
Right. Correct.
so like it's the most simple thing to understand, but people don't. A large portion of people don't understand what I'm saying there. They think that I'm like not seeing the riots happening. I'm like, I see the
Right.
riots. I see that. That's bad, but I don't choose to label that whatever's happening there with rioters and criminals and anarchists burning stuff down or whatever's happening. I just don't
Right.
choose to label that. It just looks like criminals burning stuff down to me, or robbing
Right.
stuff. I don't think that's a protest. A protest is something I can send people links to, which is real peaceful protests that are happening everywhere. So I think that people are yelling at each other and they're confused about the semantics of how people are labeling different things. Um,
Mm.
and I think it's causing a lot of confusion. Right? Um, but yes, no, I agree with what you're saying there. So it's very much agree. We'll see how that plays out. And speaking of which, I know this podcast we're going to get into what's going to happen the rest of the year. Johan has joined us. What's up, Johan?
Hi,
And
Johan.
we know Johan well. We're a day later today, Johan, but we do promise to get on a schedule sooner or later. We're both so crazy schedules and stuff. We do want to get to that eventually, but we're going to try weekly. We're try to do it weekly starting in. But anyway, to get into the core of the podcast, predicting the rest of the year. We were talking about protests and stuff, but just in general, there's a lot coming up as far as COVID and the election and just how everything is going to play out. So it's good to be interested to talk about some of this. I think that COVID is one thing, and we really, Kira, to our credit, we were talking about COVID way early on in January,
Yeah.
and most people weren't talking about it. I mean, our first
It was,
mention of
it,
COVID
yeah,
was on that
it wasn't
podcast.
COVID. It was Wuhan. It was the Wuhan virus.
It was the Wuhan virus. And I had ordered, this was in late January, you guys. I had ordered a ninja mask on the internet. And I told Kira about it that day, like January 25th. And
Yeah.
nobody was getting masks. There was like, I don't know, 1 or 2 cases of coronavirus in the US, and I had like this little dusk mask ninja thing with a motor on it. And then we did one where you put on a mask and you put your sweater over your head.
Yeah, my hoodie, and then I just zipped myself up, and then I got stuck in my, and that was my mask. And here we are, and that's why I was like, Jeff, we need to talk about the fact that today is October 15th. We have 2.5 months left of the year. Of this year, and 2020 is done in 2.5 months.
Yeah.
What is that? So we could have never predicted in January what this year would have looked like, right? So right. I think today it's time that we try and predict the next 2.5 months. So we'll start with COVID. Let's start with the election, because that's what's coming up in the next 2 weeks. I think tonight is like the separate town halls, I believe. And there's that controversy of the NBC covering Trump's and not Biden. And that's not even worth discussing. But let's start with the election. What do you see from start to finish from now until December? And then I will give you mine, and then we'll move on to COVID.
Like, what do I see happening in the election?
And any aftermath. So what are your predictions as it pertains starting January 15th through December 31st?
My opinion is that, okay, here's what I'll say about the election.
No, it's got to be a prediction, Jeff.
Anybody who's too, okay, I'll give you my prediction, but I want to make a statement about it. Anybody who's too sure either way is I would caution anyone who's too sure about either way. I would caution them against being sure, because this thing, I mean, it changes daily as to who I think has the edge. I don't think either one of them has the edge right now. I think that it's back and forth. I think that it is so hard to call that it is anybody who's too sure one way or the other. I think that just gotta be cautious, because it's not looking landslide-ish either way. So
what's your prediction?
Well, I'll predict opposite what you're gonna predict, because I know what you're gonna predict.
How do you know what I'm going to predict?
Because I know what you're going to predict. So I'm going to say opposite of what you're going to predict, and then we'll let the viewers. Because my honest prediction is I don't know. I have no idea. but I really don't know. Like I'm so in the non-knowing. But um, I'm gonna I'm gonna tell you guys that I don't know, but I'll go with Trump winning again. You're probably gonna go with Biden winning.
How would you know? I mean,
Because I don't
well,
know.
we'll get to mine in a bit. All right.
That doesn't mean that I support Trump winning. I'm just saying that that's who
Fair.
I'll go with.
Do you think
Because
it'll
I
be
don't know.
decided by, so do you think it'll be just, we'll know who the president is by December 31st of this year?
Okay, this is good. Um, yes.
Ah,
Yeah.
do you think we will know who the president is on the 4th of November?
Uh, yeah. On that night, will we know? Yes.
No, election day is like the
Like
3rd
when the
or
votes
whatever,
are decided.
second.
When the votes are
We have to,
decided, yes.
we have to, that's absentee ballots. So do you feel that it will be a landslide?
No. I don't think it'll be a
So
landslide.
do you feel it will have to go to the Supreme Court in terms of ballots and accounting?
No.
Okay.
No. I think that I'm going to say that I think what Joe Biden said, where once it's all in and once the votes are counted, he so said this and it was so spot on that that's the end of it. That's the end of it.
That's it. Yeah.
That's the end of it.
Okay.
I would want it to be the end of it. Okay, so in conclusion on my prediction, I honestly am not going to sit here and push because I would be lying. Like I can't say one way or the other. Like I'm not going to lie because I don't know. But I'll say Trump because I want us to have opinions. But like that's honestly my prediction. Is I can't. Like a prediction is kind of. It's saying something with like some degree of. It's hard to predict and not have confidence about it, you know. And I don't have confidence about it one way or the other, right? Is it?
I mean, a prediction. Yeah, I mean, a prediction doesn't necessarily mean that you have any sense or percentage one way or the other. It's more of an educated guess. Let's put it that way. Of like, at this point, from what you see, what do you feel? A prediction doesn't necessarily mean like I have a degree of certainty because nobody has a degree of certainty on anything. You know, I mean, truly, that's why it's called a prediction, right? So we have UFO guy spaceman saying that Trump will get 70% of the votes. He obviously, is for Trump, which welcome to the show because we, you know, unlike a lot of shows that lean left or right, we stay very in the middle and we don't push our agenda on anyone. So welcome to the show where you can actually like whoever the hell you want and not be judged for it.
And I know UFO guy spaceman. He shows up on my Mandela videos. How you doing, UFO guy spaceman? Very nice to hear. Yes, so that's what I think. But I want to say one of the. So I'll say that's what I think. But that can change any moment. I'm not like 100% confident in it, but I'll go with that. And I also think one prediction I did make, put on top of this, is my prediction all along was Biden and Harris, like those two, were the top of the ticket for the nominee. And I actually thought that Harris was going to be the nominee. I always saw Biden and Harris right there, as you remember.
Yep.
And so she became VP. And the only way that could be right is if somehow he drops out now or something. And I don't know how that would happen. But I will say, as I was saying Harris in all my tweets, which I put one on Facebook days ago, I was always saying that the ones that endorsements, Nate Silver, who everybody should follow, who right, he actually quite gets 20 right, but he does a lot with data and endorsements all along. The intra-party endorsements, Kamala Harris and Biden were always at the top, like from over a year ago. And if you follow endorsements from other elections previous, they're a very, very predictive stat. Not like 100%, but almost everybody that was leading in endorsements, except for like Trump, he was like the only one. Endorsements within their party went on to win the nomination. So Biden was always leading in endorsements, and Kamala was always second in endorsement. So
Interesting.
for like going a year and a half back. So like I went with that, kind of based on my own. So we'll see. Like I guess you could say I was semi right because Kamala's right there. He for me to be totally right, he would have to back out. But I did in all my tweets saying he's leading in endorsements, guys. Like, pay attention to Joe Biden. Like, when everyone was saying
Right.
Bernie and everyone was saying Pete and everyone was saying all the different, I was always like, no, Joe Biden's still winning in endorsements. A year and a half ago, he's still winning endorsements. So, but I want to say, like, the two of them, I kind of had, right there all along. But I just wanted to throw in that I did make that prediction. So those two.
Jeff
that's
is
my
like,
opinion on
everyone,
that.
just FYI, I was right. So just so everyone knows
We will say
my prediction.
yeah, we'll say for the most part. I still had Kamala up there at the top, but Joe was right. So anyway, let's hear your prediction.
Before I give you mine, I'll ask you one last question on the election. Do you feel, no matter who wins, we will enter a civil war after the election is done?
I don't think so. I do not think we will enter a civil war. I believe that when the votes are counted, that things should be done. And I think that's kind of the end of it. Like,
do you think, I have another question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you think Trump, if he were to lose, do you think he will leave, since he is the incumbent, he's in office, do you think he will leave peacefully? Or do you think he will need to be walked out with force?
Why does everybody?
Well, the reason, because he doesn't lose. So everyone's a little concerned that he refuses, and he keeps saying he's not agreeing to a peaceful transition. And a peaceful transition within a presidential election of the United States of America is a big effing deal. It's very, very important for our democracy that there's a peaceful exchange of power that's very calm and dignified and respectful. Whereas every time he's asked that question, he ignores it and doesn't answer it. So people are assuming that there may be, like, you will physically have to pull him out of the office and make him leave if he loses.
Here's what I think. First of all, I don't think that Trump was very clear when they asked him that question. He left it like very vague about a peaceful transition. Right. And so he wasn't clear on that. I don't know why. He should have. I mean, I don't want to tell him, but there should have been what he was trying to say, I think, if I'm going to try to read his mind, is he was trying to say that if things are all done in fairness, that he would do a peaceful transition. He didn't say that.
Right.
It was so easy to say, if everything's fair with everything, then yes, it will be a peaceful transition. I don't know why he didn't say it like that. But
I think mainly because he doesn't think it will be fair.
Well, he thinks there's going to be some cheating with mail or something. Just with all that, he's like paranoid about that.
Right.
But
he's extremely paranoid. Yeah.
But he still could have said, if he doesn't think it's going to be peaceful, he could have still said, if everything is fair, then there will be a peaceful transition. Can he still?
That's why he's been asked that question numerous times and refuses to answer it. And it's kind of like, okay, and that's why people are a little concerned that should he lose, will he actually leave? And that's why there's like, the news commentators are like, by law, they can physically remove him. That the people are actually talking about that because he refuses to acknowledge the fact that there needs to be a peaceful transition. And people are noticing that he refuses to answer a question about that.
Why won't he answer the question about that? I still don't get it.
I think because he doesn't want to assume that he would lose. That doesn't even enter the brain that he would ever lose, to actually have to give up power. You think that over, and I'm going to do my prediction.
Go ahead.
So, but you have to listen too.
Yeah.
Yes. So there is, and I forgot his name, or her name. I can't remember if it's a female or male. It's an octopus, and this octopus is very well known, and we can look it up. Every presidential election since, like, I don't know, Reagan or something, this octopus has gotten right. So.
And who is this?
Like,
it's an
octopus, like with like tentacles.
Yeah.
So it's in its tank. It gives, like, they have a box over here of the one president and a little box in the tank of the other one, and it constantly picks the right one every time.
And where is it?
I don't know.
Okay, keep going.
So I'm going to base my prediction off of whatever the octopus says.
Okay. Yeah.
Because as crazy as that sounds, and I'm normally not that crazy to say that, this year warrants a little bit of crazy, just because this year is a little nutty itself.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if the octopus actually, again, for 2020, predicts the president. I believe, I forgot when he decides that. I got to check and see, but I'll put it on a post so we can all watch him. Like, it's always a big, like, news story of, like, which one. It's like the groundhog on Groundhog Day. I think, but I will throw my prediction out there and await the octopus's prediction as well.
Yeah.
But I will throw it out there that I think Biden will win by I can't decide if he's going to win in a landslide, and all of this fear of, like, mail-in ballots and we're going to have to count may just be completely over the top if it's going to be a complete landslide. But I do think, and I have a weird, I don't know, I have a weird sense about certain things, and I have a very strange sense that when he does get into office, he will pass away, not of COVID, but of, whatever. And Kamala will be president within the January, February months.
You think he's going
to
pass away soon?
Yeah. And I don't know where this comes from. It's just, yeah. But I have to throw it out there because it's been on my mind for a bit that I've been feeling this. And yes. So
what makes you think that?
I don't know, divine intervention, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I get weird things that come to me sometimes, and it could be completely wrong. And frankly, I hope it is wrong because, Biden is a great, just like Trump. I mean, they're both humans and no one would ever wish death on anyone. But I actually feel like something is brewing there. And Kamala would be president at that point. The second prediction that I'll make is I agree. I don't think there will be a civil war, even though UFO spaceman does.
Mm-hmm.
I think that as much as we think things are crazy and everyone's gone insane, they really haven't. We're just being shown that sliver constantly.
Yeah.
So when you are just shown that one piece all the time, you think everything is a disaster. And it's not. And I don't think there will be a civil war. I think everyone will get their heads about them. I do think there will be a peaceful transition. I think Trump's advisors will implore him, as well as everyone around him, including his family, will implore him to ensure the democracy lives on. I think as much as we like to watch train wrecks, and as much as we're all, maybe a little on edge of the year, because in our brains we kind of like to watch the train wreck, I don't think it's going to end in a train wreck by the end of the year.
Well, there can't ever be a civil war, right? Because one side has all the guns. Like,
Yeah,
it would be
that
over.
is the most.
It would be over in about 5 seconds.
That is
Like,
the dumbest comment I think I've ever heard you say.
like, well, but I'm being.
Are you talking about, what are you talking about? Like the militia?
I'm talking about that generally Republicans tend to be more pro-gun, are more like for guns, pushing guns, like guns, and that if there was civil war, it would like Democrats don't have a lot. I'm not saying that they aren't for having guns. You know what I'm saying? But like, a lot of Democrats are not for gun. Republicans, everybody I talk to, it's all Republicans who are like, I got guns at home. Like it would
Here's
never
a
work.
question. Could you be not for guns, so not pro-gun, but own a gun?
Yes,
Ah,
absolutely.
so
You could.
I believe they're actually, of course.
That's why
actually
I'm
believe
saying I'm
there's
being
a-
kind of facetious. I'm being kind of funny.
I
I get
actually
that.
think there's
You know?
yeah, I think there's more Democrats that own guns than you would think, and
There
more
are.
that they for sure
100%.
wouldn't. So I think it would be a fair war if it would actually come to that.
You do.
Hopefully not. Well, hopefully it doesn't come to that, because I live in a state that's open carry. Like I took my friend to a restaurant and we were ordering, and she looked over at this guy standing next to us, and everyone's wearing a mask. And she looks at me and she's like, "Is it open carry here?" I'm like, and in his pocket is like a gun. You know,
Wait, he
I don't
had
know
it
what
just
kind,
with
because
him.
I have guns. Yeah, because you can. That's what open carry is. And that's why, like, on the road, you don't get in like arguments with people or like road rage, because you don't know if they're carrying a gun. So that's the fun part of Georgia, is that like it's like Arizona. That's an open carry state as well. So in any event,
So anyway, I was being kind of facetious, by the way,
I know you were.
and I was also making it, you know, making the point that there's you know, you do hear the thing is, I want to talk about this for a second longer. But there are a lot of people, in respect to them, on the left that actually are anti-gun, like anti-people,
Right.
gun, especially
Yeah.
on the far.
I grew up in that. Like
Yeah.
my family is anti-gun. My father's never touched a gun. Guns were, and you know, statistically speaking, I think it's like 75%
Yeah.
of people that own guns have the gun turn on themselves versus it actually being used against, you know,
Yeah.
towards safety. It's the statistics are terrible with gun ownership. Not to say that gun ownership's you shouldn't own a gun, but statistically speaking, it's usually used against you, not for you in that case. But that's my prediction. I don't think there will be a civil war. If there is, I don't think you could potentially even call it a civil war. I think it would be it would not be protests. It would be riots at that point. And I think that's no matter who gets in, there will be riots and protests. If Biden gets in, there's going to be riots. If Trump stays in the White House, I think there will be riots. So I don't think that's going away. To call it a true civil war, though, at first, you know, I'd say if you asked me like a few weeks ago, I was like, but I actually I had to check myself and realize that I'm also eating everything that's fed to me, and I have to be very careful of that, because the world looks insane, but it's actually really not. That's what we're being fed. So
I
yeah.
I agree. I do think that there will be riots. I think that there will be protests. So that's all going to happen. But I'm saying that I think that it will be, for the most part, like when the votes are counted, that's like the decision. You know, that's the point that I'm making. I don't think that we're going to go all the way into January and not know who the president is. So,
Okay, I don't either. I think either way we will know by the end of the year.
Yeah, I would agree.
So we have that prediction.
We have that prediction. How soon after do you think we'll know, like the next day when the votes are counted?
No.
You don't? Okay.
No, I don't think it's going to be
very clean.
You know, here in Georgia, it's actually interesting. Here in Georgia, we have advance voting, which means we started voting. You can go to a polling place as of this Monday. So people have already been going. I live in one of the largest, if not the largest county in Georgia called Cobb County. And in 2016, advance voting at this time in 2016 on this day, there was 163,000 votes of advance voting thus far back in 2016. Today, so fast forward 4 years, we have 603,000. So the numbers have jumped by 275%. I mean, there are lines around the block for people are standing out there for hours and hours and hours and hours, and it's only October 15th. Well, I think we're going.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No. I mean, okay. So on what you were saying there, what do you think's gonna cause? Why is there going to be rioting, protesting? What's going to cause the people unhappy on either side? Is it going to be because of people think that there's some type of interference by tech companies? Is it going to be because some people think there's interference because of a foreign entity? Is it going to be because people think that something happened with the mail and the voting telling? There's a lot of different options as to what people are going to be upset about. The problem is we're setting the table for different potential problems, and then everybody's going to pick one as to what caused a bad vote either way.
I actually don't think it'll get to that point. I think we're all going down the rabbit holes of something that, like, I don't think there's going to be mail-in whatever controversy. I think that's all just really good news that we all click on and then look at advertisers' ads. You know, I don't think it's actually going to be a problem in this election. Mainly because it's never been a problem. We have military personnel who have done mail-in ballots while they're overseas for a million years since Civil War, or not Civil War, but since what? World War One. You know, so I don't think mail-in ballots is going to be a big thing. I think it's just a fun news story for everyone to attach themselves. I think there's going to be riots and protests.
UFO guy Spaceman says Trump winning will start riots again.
Oh, of course it will. I think, but for sure it will. That's why. It won't be because Russia interfered or China or pick a country or anything else. It'll be because the people who didn't want that person to get into that seat again got in. They're just going to be upset. It's called emotional reaction. Yeah. It's not going to have anything to do with mail-in ballots and all that BS. It's going to have to do with, oh my God, I'm so angry that Trump or Biden got in that the country's ruined. Because that's generally what you hear when people are talking about why are you voting for Trump and why are you voting for Biden? These people are like, most people are like, don't you know that X, put in Trump or Biden, is going to ruin the country? It's the exact same for each of them. So everyone thinks this is like the most important election of our lifetime. That is why you're seeing advanced voting through the roof. I think we will see the biggest turnout in any election that we've ever had in this country. I think everyone is taking their wheelchairs out to go vote. I mean, they are like, everyone is getting out there and voting this year. So I think the riots and protests will be an emotional reaction, not necessarily due to any outside influence of any kind.
So you don't think it will be because you think there's interference? You think it'll either side, whoever wins, you think it'll just be people that are like upset?
Yeah, correct.
You don't think they'll have
You said that very quickly and much more eloquent than I could have. It took me 20 minutes to get that out, and you're like, so this is just what you hear. Oh, and I was like, yes.
Yeah. I think that yeah, no, I think that's funny. I agree though. I think that it would be because people be it'll be if people are upset. So you think okay, so you think Biden will win, and
Yeah.
you think there will be unhappy people, but you think there will be riots, protests following that. You then think things will roll themselves out, but you then have the other prediction about something like his health or something might happen once he gets in, and that Harris would take over as president at that point.
Correct. I actually really feel very strongly about that. And whether it's in January or February, I'm not entirely sure, but I actually feel like that's going to occur.
Kira's making bold prediction, you all. She's got a
I
bold
hope that's not
prediction.
true.
Yeah.
I don't want these things to be true, but it's just I don't know, that has a really feeling that I can't get away from. Okay, final minutes, and we'll
Yes.
wrap up. Oh, and just an FYI to everyone that's watching, we're off next week. I'm going on a mother-daughter retreat into the woods. So, not that I'm not in the woods here, but we're meeting in North Carolina. So,
Mom and daughter bonding time.
yes, doing witchy stuff and tarot and all of that.
All that stuff.
So we will be off next week, Jeff and Kira's show.
I'll be continuing to upgrade our show here. It's coming along
yes.
Yes.
And Jeff's doing a fine job.
It's been a long haul, but we're getting there. Keep going.
Final minutes of our show this week. COVID predictions. I will go first.
Yes.
By the end of the year, what does COVID look like? I will start worldwide and then go into US. Worldwide, Europe is already getting extremely concerned with their numbers. India is exploding continuously. I think Britain is going back into lockdown or starting to go back into the stricter rules as it pertains to COVID. I think we're going to see, I don't think it's going to be this like, oh, it's the fall and now COVID's through the roof. I think it's going to be the slow progression back to the levels that we saw when it first came. Because I think I don't think it's going to be spiky. I think it's just going to be a progression up. As things start to open, that's a natural thing to have happen. In the US, I think it'll go along with the world, though I think we will see in some cases some spikes here and there, depending on the state. I don't think a vaccine is coming out this year. And I don't think a vaccine is coming out until June or July of next year, which means we wouldn't receive the vaccines until late next year. Because you don't just make a vaccine and then it's delivered to your door the next day. It takes then months to get it out. And it's not going to be the cure-all, be-all, end-all of everything. They've already said that no vaccine has really gotten rid of anything, I mean, look at the flu. How long have we had the flu? We still can't get rid of that. So with a vaccine. So I think COVID's here to stay. I think it'll get lessened with the vaccine, but I don't think we're going to get a vaccine until late next year. That's my prediction.
All right. I'll go with mine. It's a fair prediction. I think that things are going to, it's kind of going to be a slow walk towards improvement. I don't think that things are going to spike out of control like they were in March or whatever. I totally agree with you there. But I think that expect masks and limited sporting events to go around, to be around for a good while still. I would expect that to be around well into 2021, probably into next summer. You'll still have masks around, limited restaurants. We're still a solid 6 to 8 months, probably, or more, speculating of that all being around to some degree. I know it's heavier in some states, mask wearing stricter in states than others, but expect that to be around for a good while, probably into next summer. I do think a vaccine will come, but it might not be the end all. I do think we need to be open to not a lot of people are saying this, but just the treatments like will improve. The treatments will continue to improve. They already have, and we'll learn more and more about it. And we could just get so good with treatments and such that that'll help a lot because we'll have great treatment for it. That's not to say I don't think a vaccine will come. I think there will be something sooner or later. But I think the treatments will continue to improve as we get closer and closer to, better. That we'll have such good treatments that we'll be able to limit it enough where things will slowly start to. So I think that in some ways was also what you were saying to a degree.
I actually really strongly agree with you when it comes to the treatments, because if you look at the flu, they can give you they can give you medication, right? Like if they catch it early enough, and it will minimize your flu. It
Yeah.
won't eradicate it, but it'll minimize your symptoms. I think, to your point, treatment, once we get a handle of really how this virus works, because we still haven't gotten that completely done. I mean, it's still very new. Once we figure out the genome of this entire virus, I think, to your point, for sure the treatments will be far better than they are now. And to your point, they continue to improve each month that we're seeing. So though everyone's really excited for a vaccine to come, don't put your hopes on that, because it will not eradicate COVID. That's not going to happen in our lifetime. I don't think.
Yeah.
We have COVID, just like we have influenza. It's like, yes, I think we're going to have masks for quite some time. So let's just kind of buckle in and deal with it,
Good predictions. We'll see how it
October 15th
plays out. Yes, October.
Yes.
It's October. Wow. Okay, that's some time. We'll see what happens the next 2.5 months. It's
I know, I'm kind of excited.
Yeah, I am as well. Phyllis is here. Hi, Phyllis. Pyro's here. Got more people that have checked in. It's good to see you guys. You can rewatch it back. It'll be up. We're going to continue to upgrade this podcast. We're going to keep going with more fun episodes starting in a couple weeks when Kira's back from out of town. Kira, I enjoyed this today, as always, chatting.
I enjoyed it as well, Jeff. It's so good to see you, and I'm so happy that we can do this bi-coastal now.
Here at Jeff and Kira Live, we are the future, and the future is Jeff and Kira Live. I will see you. This is episode 44. I will see you in a couple weeks.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Kira. Later.
Bye, guys.